Nithyanandam Paramashivoham Kevalam Jnanamurtyam Dvandvatitam Gagana Sarisham Tattvamasyadilaksham Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadhi Sakshi Bhutam Bhavatitam Trigunaraitam Sadgurum Tam Namami. Namaskaram, everyone. Welcome to Hinduism Now Global Press Live. Hindus talking about Hindumisia, continuing our regular podcast, gathering Hindus from around the world and non-Hindus, interfaith leaders, indigenous leaders, government leaders, celebrities, youth leaders, etc., to enrich the world, the Hindu ecosystem, and the world with the benefits of the ancient Enlightenment Hindu ecosystem, the civilizational nation, and the unique gifts of Sanatana Hindu Dharma. So we continue our series today and moving towards January 27th, which is declared by United Nations as International Holocaust Remembrance Day. So discussing this week also the Hindu Holocaust, which spans nearly 1,000 years and has destroyed more than 400 million lives. So we'll continue various discussions, sharing different aspects of that going over the next week. In that this week is often observed as Holocaust Remembrance Week, and raising awareness for January as Hindu Holocaust Month. So with that, I would like to welcome our guest today, who is a youth leader of Hindus and experienced in many different ways in this format and others. And his name is Dinesh Patel. Thank you very much, Aya, for joining us today. Very exciting and great to have you here. If you can just please take a moment to introduce yourself, please. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Shri Gnanatmaji. Thank you for allowing me to come here and share my experience of being a Hindu. So I'm excited to have this conversation. I guess a little bit about me. So I grew up in India. I was born there and I basically lived half of my life there. So I went to school there. I kind of grew up there in a very rural village in the state of Gujarat. And then I moved to the United States with my family. And I've been, living here. And then I completed my, middle school, high school, and college. So I'm a recent grad. And yeah, that's where I am. That's just a little bit about me.
Okay, great. I didn't know that. So I'm just going to jump right in and wanted to go through your life and development experience as a Hindu with Hindumisia, etc., and anything you want to share. And anything you don't want to share, just don't, and just say next question or whatever. And so shall we do that?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, great. So, okay, I didn't know you were born in India. Can you tell more about that?
Yeah, so I was born in India in a very, like I said, rural place, in a village. And back when I was growing up, I know it's crazy because within the last even 10-12 years, India has changed so much. And even the village that I lived in has changed so much, and it looks very different than compared to when I was growing up there. But yeah, I grew up there. It was a really a nice way to grow up in a way compared to now, living in the United States. Now looking back, I'm like, wow, that kind of an ambience, that kind of an ecosystem doesn't exist everywhere in the world. And I feel so like blessed and fortunate to grow up in such an environment. Growing up in nature, growing up with like a temple ecosystem as well in the town. Um, and many of the ancient aspects of life, lifestyle, like how you brush your teeth, how you take a shower, how what kind of things you eat in the morning, the kind of diet you have, based on the rural place that you're living in, the local foods, the local kind of customs and traditions that we live with. I feel super blessed to grow up with that. And I'm like, not everyone has this opportunity to use, for example, like datan. That's what we call it in Gujarat, which is like a tree bark from specific trees like neem, or it's called bawad, or like the banyan tree. They take like a bark of it and you basically chew on it, and then you like brush your teeth with it. Where else do you see that? Like you're not gonna. It's very hard to find something like that in the United States. So yeah, that was my childhood. And I went to school in India. I that's how I'm like also fluent in many of the like local Indian languages. So um, in the schooling they also teach Gujarati, which is my mother tongue, and then I also learned Hindi and Sanskrit in schools. So I was super kind of fortunate again to have that experience. Yeah, that was just a little bit about my childhood, I guess.
Wow. So you okay, so yeah, so you learned the different languages also. Okay, so you said it was a small village where you were born.
Yeah, it's a small village. The many of the like villages in Gujarat, many of them are farm centric. So what it is like, you live in a like a rural area, like you live in a village, and then like just a little bit far, like apart from that is like lots of fields of farms. So it's kind of interesting because when I came to the US, the concept of farming was very different in the West. Like in the West, it was more so like if you kind of are if you kind of live in a rural place, you usually live on a farm, and the farm is right there where you live. But this was like a little different concept, where our village was there, but then all the different farms for all the families that lived in that village was like a different section. So people would like wake up and go to their farms and attend to their crops, whatever they need to do, like water it, put different, I don't know, fertilizer or whatever. So all those things. So it was a small village. It's there was a huge temple there. Um, like most villages in the state of Gujarat, like where I lived, have a temple in the town. So everyone kind of goes to the temple, celebrates festivals there. Um, and it's been actually interesting to see the progression of how my village has changed ever since I was a little kid growing up in that village, and how it has changed and progressed, and how like what it looks like today. And in many ways, some things, yes, some things change for good, some things um, we're kind of losing as we change and move away from these indigenous traditions and practices that we've always had, that my ancestors practiced. um, so yeah, in some ways it's nice, in some ways it's very unfortunate too. So it's been a crazy experience noticing that progression.
And there was a huge temple. What temple is that?
So the temple, the main deities of that temple were of Rama, Sri Ram, and Sita Mata, and Hanumanji, Lakshmanji. Like that was like the center shrine. And then right next to the big temple, the big Shikhar temple, there was another smaller temple for Hanumanji. There was another smaller temple right next to it for Shivji. So there was a huge Shivalinga there. Um, and yeah, and there's like a space for cultural programs for the temple. Like if there's some festival, if there's Ganesh Chaturthi, then the whole village will get a huge murti of Ganesha, and they'll have the Ganesha for 9 days, and yeah, then the whole village will gather in one place every evening to do arti to Ganeshi and sing bhajans, eat prasad, just celebrate.
So is there any pictures online of that temple?
I think there is, yeah. Um, yeah, I can send them to you later if you want to see them. I'm sure it's
Yeah.
online.
Okay. I'm just curious. You said it's a large. You said it's a larger temple.
Yeah, it's actually usually see like temples in many villages they could be smaller temples like a small shrine of certain deities. But actually our village is actually comparatively to that region it's relatively like larger and more like we have a bigger temple than compared to other villages in the area. So there's actually another temple. It's not in the same area, but a different part of the village. It's for another Devi. So it's a Devi temple for Bhavani Devi. Her name is Bhavani Ma. So it's a, I think it's a very regional deity for that village.
Okay, great. And okay, Dinesh, you're saying so. What were your parents doing? Like, what was your home life in that in your early years there? What was it like?
So yeah, it was really nice. My mom usually, so where I live, the kind of general um, the way people are is like usually the mothers are stay-at-home moms and they do take care of their kids. um the dad usually, so most of the people in the village do have farms. So what they do is they produce different crops. Where I lived, majority of the people produce sugarcane. So sugarcane is like the predominant thing that they grow. So yeah, and then mom is just like stay-at-home mom. She took care of us and instilled all the Hindu values in us. And yeah, dad was, working different things, farms. He also had, so some people also, kind of go out of their traditional like farms and explore other jobs and other careers. So my dad also uh, was a contractor. So he used to, build houses and facilitate all that. So he actually made our village gate. Uh, so yeah, that's what they did.
And what about your siblings?
Yeah, so I have an older brother. So interestingly, my brother and I didn't grow up like together too much because uh, like when we were really young, yes, we were growing together, but then my brother he went to like a hostel to study to a different school like far away. So hostel is basically like a dorm in the West, what they would call a dorm. In India, they call it hostel. Uh, so my brother was away studying like in the hostel for most of the time, and I went to a school near our village, so like 10 minutes from where we live in a nearby city. So I was always home and I was always near that village ecosystem, village ambience with my parents constantly. The interaction is always there, while my brother kind of grew up uh, in a school that was a little bit farther away in a city. So we kind of have like two different experiences kind of growing up as well.
Why did he go to the different school?
It's I've never heard that question, but I mean it's such an interesting question, right? Because I think the thing is most of the people that, it's unfortunate in a way, a lot of people in India think, especially the part that I lived in, a lot of the rural areas, they have this inherent belief that if your kids want to succeed, they have to kind of go out uh, to a school in a city where they can like learn English and be more like outgoing and be professional. So you know, in case like someone goes to the West, like it'll be easier for them, like things like that. It's like thinking that you're gonna get like some kind of a modern, quote unquote, modern education if you kind of go away from your locality and you kind of move to a city and you probably learn more things. I personally think that's a myth because I mean I grew up in a village and I went to a school nearby, so I was constantly interacting with that village, and I grew up fine. Like I have the same knowledge, the same information, right? Um, Even probably in a way, it's even better to live in a rural ecosystem because it teaches you a lot of things that you might not learn living in a dorm or a hostel, uh, that you get exposed to while living with this beautiful community of a village that you know is always together and celebrating together. So
Mhm. Do you know, was it like a Christian school that he went to, or?
no, it wasn't a Christian school. It was so a lot of these like it's not just my brother, like a lot of people sent their kids to like these hostels or dorms that were in other cities. I think it also has to do with the name of the school or like the prestige kind of associated with it. So some of the schools see some schools are also, I think, somehow related to some international school order. So maybe they're, I think maybe they have some relation with the West, because some schools were called like the name of the school and then like international behind it. So I think it was like a franchise of schools that's like internationally present, which is interesting. I've never thought about that, but until now. So maybe, I mean, that has a lot to do with that, of parents wanting to send their kids to uh, these English medium school. That's what they call it. So it's like the education is given in English. Everything is centered around English, and the local languages are considered like, you know how I would in the US people take like Spanish, French, or other languages. It's kind of like that. It's like in those kind of schools, like the native language is like English, so like you're expected to speak English all the time, and the local languages are kind of like the elective foreign languages, what you would say in the West. And it's even the school I went to, which was not too far from where I lived. Even that school, the expectation was that we speak English mandatory. So I mean, no one did it because everyone wanted to speak our native language, but the expectation was still that, you know, we should be speaking English all the time because the school fell under the category of English medium school. So like the other category of school, so in India, it's, but I think there's like a local language like medium school. They call it medium because that's like the medium through which they teach. So if it's an English medium school, it's like English is the medium of teaching and English is the medium of learning. Versus in the state of Gujarat where I grew up, there are schools, Gujarati medium schools, that's what they call it. So the education is through the medium of the local language of Gujarati. Um, Unfortunately, I mean, I didn't go to a Gujarati medium school. Neither did my brother. So we both went to an English medium school. But I have some friends who went to the Gujarati medium school, and uh, I feel like it's probably a completely different experience for them, learning like science, math, all of that in our native language compared to English.
Yeah, exactly. Great. So, okay, good. So what was, yeah, can you just even describe what was it, what was your, you were growing up, I grew up in Canada, and so growing up in, as you're saying, a village in India, it's some differences. What was your village like? What did it look like? What did the houses look like? How far was your school? How close were the houses together? What was it like? Like it was, what is it actually? How many people live there? Like,
Yeah, you're like getting excited to know. I like it. Like even, I mean, even sometimes I just like pause and think about it. I'm like, wow, like what a beautiful lifestyle that existed. Unfortunately, in many parts, like it doesn't exist anymore because of the way things have changed. Um, but so in our village, actually the houses and stuff are, so it's very close. So if my house is here, right next to it, the wall is connected to the next house. and then it's like that. The walls are connected for all the houses, and there's like, I would say 20 to 30 houses in one row, and then in front of that row, there's another 20 to 30 houses facing each other. So it's a very community feeling compared to the West, like where houses are like one block away. So if someone, comes out of their house, it's like you see the whole village, like you see the whole town, like your whole street. So if someone else is, coming out from their house, like you see them and you greet them, like you're like, hey, what's up? How's it going? And people they don't lock their doors. Like the doors are just open. So, they might have it like shut, but they don't like physically lock the door. So anyone can just like, if I feel like going to someone's house and, chatting with them, I just kind of go and um, just talk to them. It's a very open design where people just kind of come together, interact. And in the evenings, there's like it's like a tradition, like people just come together and sit and just talk about things, just enjoy the weather, just take a moment out of their day, I don't know, together to talk to other people from their community.
Mm.
And
Yeah. See. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
no, I was just in terms of describing the village because you asked that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
usually what happens in a village is that there's different streets. So there's multiple streets in a village, and they're called faryus, like where I in Gujarat. So these different streets have their own kind of little community within the larger like temple community or the village community. And the temple is located in like the center of the town where all the different streets kind of come together for like bigger celebrations like Ganesh Chaturthi or Janmashtami. Uh, so it's like it's interesting because it's like little communities within like a larger community, which is part of even a larger community. And all the streets also have their own unique like identities, which is like they have their own names, like they're also known for their own things. But then, when there's a Hindu festival celebration, they all just like come together and dance and sing and celebrate.
Mm-hmm. So how old is that village?
Oh gosh. So based on my conversations with like my grandpa and like my great grandpa, um, what what I understand is a lot of my ancestors came from like northern part of Gujarat. So they were in the northern or central region of Gujarat, and then they eventually migrated down um, towards like the south of Gujarat where I live. And in the southern part of Gujarat, um, like they came down and they kind of like had different like lands. So I don't know how exactly it works, but I think when people like migrated down, all this land was just there for like farming. So when these communities migrated in kind of chunks, when they come, they just kind of started farming and creating a livelihood for themselves in a way, using these farms. And yeah, I think that's how the village kind of started. I don't know how old it is, but I would assume it's at least like 200 years, 150 years. I don't know. But because I remember my great grandpa when he was living in the village, and I actually saw him, like he was living when I was a little kid. So he lived like 99 years. So when he was young and he was starting his own, like 20s, 30s, he actually just had he just like was sitting on a piece of land that he would call home, with like a little hut thing. So now it's changed a lot. The houses have actually built uh, into like concrete style houses, but before that it used to be made of like cow dung. So cow dung would be used to make the houses, like the walls of the house, and the roof would be made from different like either coconut or like different material, similar some natural material, uh, to make a house like that. So yeah, so I would say, I mean, at least 100 years, 150 years, probably even older. it's hard to tell exactly, because a lot of times it's very oral, like it's an orally passed down thing. It's not something that's documented in the history books. But actually, maybe the next time I go there, I'll consult there's like a village priest that kind of keep tracks of all the different like ancestors that people have had. It's really interesting. So if I go and if I say, okay, who was my great grandpa's dad? Like, what was his name? He would have the records of all of that. Yeah, so they actually write it down. So maybe I would have to go talk to them and find out more about the age of our village.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah, that's awesome. Dinesh, how many people live in that village?
Um, Several hundred people.
Oh, so small, very small.
Yeah, it's a very small, but comparatively to like some of the other like villages in the region, like ours is like larger than many of them. So a
Wow,
couple, yeah, it's like a couple hundred people.
wow,
Yeah, I can't put an exact
wow.
number. Yeah, I don't know.
That's small, but I was born in a place of 2000 and that was quite small. But so, okay, so so it sounds like that's common in India where you can have a village of just 50 people.
Yeah, you could.
So how
I've
does
actually
that work? Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
there are villages that are very small. I've seen some of them. The thing is, like, they're not too. They are far apart. Some are like
Mm,
really close by as well to another village, like another larger village, and then some of them, unfortunately, due to the industry, like over industrialization, hyper industrialization, however you want to call it, um, what's happening actually to the villages where I grew up is the villages are becoming city. So the cities are expanding. So all these like industrialists and corporatists and all these business people are like buying all the land, the rural land of these people in the villages, and they're converting it into like apartment complexes, stores, malls, all these different things. And so what they're doing is they're literally like expanding a city to more and more of the rural region. So they're expanding the city and kind of industrializing all these rural areas. So many of the smaller towns, sadly, like they have their own probably name, but functionally they're part of the city. So the people there would probably have jobs in the city. They would commute back and forth to the city for a job rather than like uh, their life being oriented around the farm community.
right. Hmm.
I am noticing
Okay.
like
Wow.
a trend of this like this the expansion of the cities and the decline or the minimization of the village lifestyle, the rural lifestyle, and the industrialization is just taking over um, all these places.
Yeah, exactly. The even South America and even United States, you can see it's the same as the traditional farmers moved off their land and it becomes conglomerates that controlling that. And so yeah, people become dependent on that. So okay, wow. Then so was it mostly just you and your mother and father in your own individual place then, if your brother was at the other school for some time?
Yeah. So a great part about the village lifestyle is also extended families. Like you have large family units that live together, and even in a way, your neighbors are probably related to you. See, the way it is if like my great grandpa has like three children, then those three children have their own kids. So now the family is expanded. So what they do is they have like one huge block of their house. So now they divide it up into like multiple blocks for each of the son that the great grandpa had. So now they have like 2 blocks or 3 blocks, depending on how they, kind of structure it based on the family dynamics. So I end up being related to my neighbor because their house was basically just like a separate room created, or a separate kind of area created for the other son. So now I'm just like a descendant of that lineage. So where I live is still, even though I live there, like the next door neighbor grandpas are like my grandpa's like siblings. So yeah, it's a very extended family kind of lifestyle where uh, we had, my grandpa wasn't there. He lived in the U.S. with my uncle, but uh, his brother, he was handicapped, so our family took the responsibility to take care of him. So he stayed with us, and he was like my grandpa when my actual grandpa wasn't able to be with me physically. So he took care of me. I didn't have any grandmas. They passed away before I was born. So my only exposure is to my grandpas. So.
Mm. Great. So how does a small community like that sustain itself?
Actually, I've had many conversations with my parents about this, my grandpa about this, because I'm really curious about how they used to function. Even little things like the kind of fertilizer they use in their farms, right? Because back in the day, I was talking to my grandpa the other day, and it's interesting because when I was asking my dad about it, he had a different view from even when my grandpa um, was living in this kind of farm lifestyle, and even his view is not like completely what the original view might have been of my great grandpa. So the question that I asked him was, how did they deter the pesticide, the pests and all the insects and all the things that might damage the crops? And interestingly, my dad said, oh yeah, you just spray the fertilizer. You just you just spray whatever is uh, the chemicals that were prevalent at that time, because even during his time, many of the Western kind of companies pesticides have made their way into the Indian markets, into the farming markets, where people just thought that just using these pesticides would solve all the problems, and they didn't think much about it, because even financially it was made cheaper. It was uh, it was presented as this alternative that's harmless. There's nothing wrong with it. It just kills the bugs and it makes your life a lot easier. That's how it was presented. And my grandpa, I kind of pushed him a little bit because he kind of had the similar view, but then I was like, no, 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 like this is this thing that you were using was from a Western company, and it's not something that has always been there. So what did like your father and your grandpa uh, use in the farms to deter the pests and all these things? And then he started getting, oh, like, okay, yeah, I think they use like neem or some other like plant-based some natural like fertilizer that wasn't chemical based. So it's really interesting to see how even little things like fertilizer has kind of changed a lot of lifestyle. And it's interesting because many of the farms today, like I hear these complaints from some of the people from the village, is they complain about their crops getting destroyed by like some pests, or uh, if it like rains too much, like their soil isn't the quality that it used to be. And now you can clearly see how it's like a systemic way of like soil genocide. In a way, you're killing the soil, the nutrients and the richness in the soil using these chemicals. Um, so yeah, in a sense, like it kind of just made the lifestyle harder. And coming back to your question about how do they sustain themselves, sustaining themselves becomes harder when even your soil, the thing that nourished you, that nourished your family, provided for your family, provided the stability to the village ecosystem, like that in itself is in danger now. Now people are forced to get jobs outside in the city. People are forced to go work in a factory, um, and not actually produce crops that they used to. So yeah, I mean that back in the day, I'm imagining like, because even if my dad thinks, pesticides was the way, if my grandpa kind of also thinks that, it's probably like even before him, that it was more of a self-sustaining village where, people would just produce their crops, and the crops were probably distributed in a very local way, maybe not just limited to their village, but maybe distributed to other villages around the town as well. And they probably had their own way of doing business with them, selling certain crops and getting maybe other crops in return to add like more diversity to their collection of crops. So yeah, I think that's how they sustain themselves back in the day. Nowadays, people they just get their own jobs, and the majority of the crops that are produced in the village is sugarcane. And the city nearby or village actually has the largest sugar factory in Asia. So what they're doing is now it's like incentivizing all of the villages to produce sugarcane. That's it. So in turn, that's also reducing the biodiversity within these plants. Because back in the day, the way people used to grow crops is actually, even my dad and my grandpa told me this. They had, a certain crop in a certain part of the field, and then they had a different plant that went along with it. So even the plants work together to kind of facilitate each other in their, production. And even the nutrient like now, studying more into it, even the nutrient quality of the land, the soil, it actually facilitates each other in a sympathetic way. That means like both benefit each other. So if one crop depletes nitrogen, then the other crop will replenish nitrogen. So it's like it's a cyclical thing where if one of the plant uses one of the nutrients, the other plant that's planted alongside that replenishes that in the soil. So you don't need additional fertilizers and additional any chemical kind of a thing to sustain the production. But because of the presence of the sugar factory, most of the farms produce sugarcane. And what happens is after the production is done, like the sugarcane season is over, they would just take all the sugarcane and take it to the sugar factory, and the sugar factory will make sugar out of that. So now like the whole system is dependent on just producing sugar because of this huge demand from the sugar factory to want sugarcane to make this sugar and keep the production going. Wow, that was a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome. Dinesh, you said, you said like the people are being forced to get jobs. What is that? What is that? Why? How does that? What does that mean? How does that work? Is that actually happening in even in that own village?
Yeah. So, back when
I don't mean obviously that they don't have jobs, but being pushed out, because I believe you use the term forced to like get jobs or something, but forced. So not that and so, but the idea that away from, a lifestyle that, you see people living in India for 20,000 years, people have lived like that, right? They'll use a stone for rolling the, if you're going to use some turmeric, right? You'll take some turmeric root and roll it. Like that's how you get turmeric. Like people in North America don't know what turmeric root looks like, for example, right? And so then people will say, oh, that's very primitive. Hey, it's not primitive, right? We're surrounded by plastic, in your mattresses that gives you cancer, right? Plastic in your toothpaste that gives you cancer, like, metals, lead, plastic in your paint that gives you cancer, right? So a lot of people in North America are used to this plastic environment that is killing you in every possible way, and so it's completely unsustainable, especially, this is the things that contribute to things like Alzheimer's and, the autism spectrum, attention deficit, and, all these different aspects. So that is what people will look and say, okay, this is primitive, that is primitive. Hey, but actually this, even Canada is only something like 145 years old since they incorporated themselves, as a country. And So, but to that extent, becoming completely destructive, totally, not sustainable. The way that people live in Canada, even in the cold, is they're completely not at all acclimated to living in the cold. Like when the cold comes, it started about a month ago, the more coldness. When that comes, the people, recoil. Like sometimes we literally only get 2 months of summer. But so that time it's like they're outside wearing their short pants, and it's like that is the thing, is you are outside, you're outside all the time. And when this time comes, it's just like, we're inside, we're not active. It's like completely, totally not at all acclimated to living in the climate. So it's like actually the humans have made themselves totally unable to live in this place. People will say like, oh, I want to have a heated house and, and be protected from the elements. But what it ends up doing, right? What it ends up doing is makes you totally unsustainable. Your life and life, so I want to be protected from the cold. But like if you see people in the northernmost climates, they literally would live in snow homes, what they call the igloo, right? And if you see how they used to live, actually they'd wear like almost only this much clothes sometimes inside like they'd be wearing usually some kind of animal skin, but sometimes no top. And you see there's video of it, and they may have some like small fire inside. But you just think, how could you possibly, it gets minus 60 and windy, and that is like sometimes a usual weather, and so you'll see some of that environment, some video literally of it. They're living inside in that climate. It has to be at least minus 15 inside, and degrees Celsius, and they're not all their skin is covered. Sometimes like that, if the baby will not even have their chest covered, and so they are laughing. And it's well known, the happiest people on the planet are the people who live in those kind of harshest conditions, like especially people of the north. And so and then you get the Canadians in the cold winter time when they can't go out, extremely depressed, and their attitude, and their level of happiness completely dependent on the weather forecast. Like, okay, cold weather is coming and snowy weather is coming. That is a bad thing for them. I won't go outside. I won't have anything to do. That's their plan for the next, they start sleeping in later. That's their plan for the next few days is, I won't have much to do. I won't go outside. I'll watch television. It's so anyway, so the humans have made themselves totally unsustainable. And so yes, so anyway, so then Dinesh, you had mentioned like the people are being pushed. Is that actually happening? Being pushed, like what does that actually mean?
Yeah. So yeah, I just wanted to mention something, that because you mentioned about people, how in the West, like even I'm guilty of that, because I've just been conditioned to think that way. Is oh, it's cold outside, like I just want to sit home and sit at home and do nothing. Like I just want to watch TV, or I just want to do whatever else. But in reality, like people are just wasting time. It's like it's being incentivized for people to be lazy and not be active in their lives, and just kind of use that time in a very non-constructive way that they could be using to empower and enrich their own lives as well. But interestingly, when I grew up, in kind of having a correlation to how I grew up in the rural community, every season, no matter if it's like winter, summer, or rainy season, monsoons, right? Any of the seasons, there was always some significance to every single season. It's like people look forward to something in every single season. So, for example, in winter, what they do is, I mean, gladly that tradition still continues largely in most parts of Gujarat, especially, where I grew up. Even people carry it in the West. Like even my mom makes the same kind of, it's called methi and magaj. So these are like two kinds of, uh, I don't want to call them sweets because they don't have sugar in them, but it has jaggery in it. and a lot of different things like dates and a lot of winter friendly items in it. So what happens is every winter, all the families in the village will make the same thing they all make. And then they will just have that every morning throughout that winter, because when you eat this thing, your body naturally warms up because of the quality of the food that you're putting in the body. And it's a very, natural and healing thing in the winters. So when the winter is approaching, everyone is looking forward to winter. They're like, whoa, like, our lifestyle is going to change like this, and I'm going to be eating methi and magaj every morning. Like, people just have
Yeah.
a mindset instead of being like, oh man, winter's coming, like I'm not going to do anything now. It's like
Yeah.
people have something to look forward to,
Yeah.
something that they can celebrate even in that season, however it is. Same thing with, I know there's a time frame called Chaitra Navratri in Gujarat. I think it has different names in different parts of uh, in India. So it's not like the Navratri that we celebrate the 9 nights, but this is
Mhm.
like a different version of that Navratri. So
Mhm.
in that, what happens is people in the village, they wake up and then they go to find a neem tree, and they take the leaves, and then everyone chews the neem leaves. That's like a tradition. So in that period, like everyone just chews on neem leaves in the morning, which is a great practice. And it's even mentioned in our shastras we should be doing that. So it's like they're looking forward to these different traditions and different practices that they have for different seasons and different times of the years. So they never get like bored, they never get tired, they never get like lethargic or lazy about living life. Like living life is always like in a positive, is viewed in a positive sense. And not to say, because I'm making these statements and maybe someone where I'm from, they might be watching this video, but like, well, it's not like that today. Yeah, it's not like that today because a lot of people have lost that tradition. Fortunately, I grew up with that. My parents kind of facilitated me to have that, especially my mom. She facilitated me to have these experiences and be spiritual grounded and connected to all these practices. But not everyone has the same experience, unfortunately. And like you mentioned, the original question that you asked was like people are being forced, and yeah, they are being forced because their environment is being changed and made in such a way that these people see no other option but to resort to this quote unquote modern way of lifestyle. um, because all the things, like for example the economic structure, the social structure, um, all of those things, the farming structure, the agricultural sector, right? All of that, the basis of that is becoming more and more of a non-indigenous system. So the people who used to have these ancient systems of existing and living and coexisting, now they have to comply with this neo-economic, neo-social, neo-agricultural system, which they're not accustomed to. And when incentives are created, for example, the I'm not against or for the sugar factory. This is just a plain observation. When the sugar factory came in the region that I live, the nearby city, all the villages prioritize and selectively just produce sugarcane. Why? Because the sugar factory probably started offering incentives to all the villages, saying, when you sell us your sugarcane, we're gonna give you a lot of money. Like we're gonna buy it for a higher price. So then all these people living in the villages naturally, because of the state of their life, they want more wealth. So then they're naturally inclined to just go with this thing, and they're like, okay, now we're just gonna switch off our indigenous ancient way of thinking. They're just gonna switch it off, and then now they're just gonna become robots and just in a mindless way, they're just gonna keep producing sugarcane, even though just producing a single crop for years and years and years, it depletes the nutrient quantity and the richness of the soil, because even the soil needs diversity. When you plant different crops every several months, you're replenishing and kind of revitalizing the soil, which now isn't happening. So in a way, people are forced to kind of adopt this lifestyle, and I feel like now they're gonna realize that, hey, just because we switched this off mentally, we just switched off this lifestyle. Now we're gonna face the consequences of this decision that we made. And a lot of times these decisions are forced, and forced in a way that no one's, dragging you physically, holding your hand and saying, hey, produce sugarcane, or else I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z to you. But it's a very subtle way of manipulating, um, and destroying these ancient way of living by incentivizing certain things and incentivizing other things. It's a very manipulative game, in terms of economics, social, and agricultural sense.
Hmm. Right, exactly. So yeah, like you were saying, there are some like type industrial type, etc., purchasing up the land, and it just sort of becomes one big city. That is something I've noticed in parts of India. It's like there's villages, but a lot of times, even when you're driving on the main road, it's like there's almost sometimes no gap between them, and like people will call it a village, but like it's a sprawling, and um yeah, like that is, yeah, that definitely has been one of the strategies, like conscious plan strategies to destroy indigenous cultures, is to move them off their land. I mean, even, that was even in relation to the Criminal Tribes Act of 1871 in India, um, you know and related legislations that prevented people from living off the forest resources, actually. So there'd be a law like, you can't take this out of the forest, you can't take. So people who were living there weren't allowed to sustain their life. uh, you know so and yeah, so that's one of the parts, is if the if you're not allowed, if you don't have the land, um if it's, then you become dependent on something else. So like, even you had mentioned, like, if the nearby villages would have, probably you mentioned there would have been some different kind of economy they would have had established to trade crops, etc. So that would have been there. So then if parts of that land gets taken by someone else who's not involved in the community, right? Then yeah, that resource gets removed from that ecosystem, and so it has to be replaced somewhere else. So that sort of coming in with a whole bunch of money, that villager they can't say no. They can't not sell that parcel of land. It's so much money, you can't say no. But then that piece of the puzzle, that sustained that ecosystem for hundreds of years, is gone. Ripples through the community, and so that resource is removed. And so yeah, so actually, just by an external force, so there is a sustainable ecosystem, it becomes disturbed by an external force, and right, that disconnects the circuitry, and it's kind of like introducing a virus or a cancer, where that part no longer functions. And so it would, definitely makes the dismantling happen.
Yeah, because even, I was talking about it, but I didn't explicitly make that connection in my head. But that's a great point, that, what they do is they just take that one part out. So essentially the whole system becomes it becomes non-functional, where people have to they're forced to rely on other things outside of that ecosystem. And another, that I'm really noticing, that thing where a lot of really rich people, like billionaires, are coming from outside. What they're doing is they're taking ownership. They're buying all this land from these farmers and rural village people, and they're offering millions for these land. The prices for the land value is really high, and all these people are just willing to pay all that money. And these poor farmers, who kind of have been stuck in this cycle where, like you said, all these different these parts have been taken away from their ecosystem, so they don't see a way forward for them to function. They have no motivation or no kind of inner strength left to kind of fight and still hold on to the little things that they still have left. So what they do is, they're just seeing all these lucrative offers from these billionaires, and they just want to buy all these lands and build like apartment complexes, malls, and all these other things, factories. And the farmers are like, okay, they see it as like, I have no other option. I can just become a millionaire overnight if I just sell this land. But a lot of people aren't realizing that land, whatever that land is, with them, has been acquired through so much hard work by their ancestors. It has been sustained and preserved for so many generations by our ancestors. And now just because you see, a billionaire offering you $1 million, like people are just like giving up their land. They have like no emotional connection either to this place that literally sustained their ancestors. So yeah, it's happening more and more, and people are just selling their lands because they're just getting so much money in return. Yeah, that's just another thing that I'm noticing.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And it's one of the things, if you look at human civilizations, there's like three things that all civilizations would always have a connection to. They'd always have a connection to the land. People are living on the land, so this is where you are. If there's 20 people living here, it's the land that's sustaining you. So humans always would have had a connection to the land, and they always would have had a connection to the other people. If you're just one person, you cannot survive. One person by yourself, you cannot survive. So they always would have had connection to other people, and they always would have had a connection to a higher purpose.
Yeah.
If 20 people are living in a place, and you're sustaining yourself, you're here, you would like, even the indigenous traditions in North America share their understandings of, they also worship trees, rocks, rivers, hills, mountains. Like, they have an understanding, right? You cannot abuse and destroy that thing. Like, they're the living energy that's sustaining you, right? Like, if you're living there, you have appreciation for the crops and for the trees and the clouds and the weather, right? It's like, these are the things sustaining your life. So all the humans always had to have that. If you look, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to say, and many people still do have that connection, but many of them feel that they're forced to kind of give up this lifestyle. Like, they don't see, it's like they feel like they have no strength left to fight back.
Exactly. So that's the thing. Yeah, go ahead.
And what you just said, it's like they had a higher purpose, right? It's like, okay, we're sustaining ourselves with this land that we have, all the crops, but why? The question of why sustain ourselves. And that's why we had the temple ecosystem in the villages. Every single village, not even like that one is left out. Every single village has a temple. At least it used to have it, even though some might have gotten rid of it. But it used to, every single temple village used to have a temple, because they also had that higher vision, higher purpose of centering their lives around the temple. And it's even literally, it's in the center of the village, and even like metaphysically, even in a metaphorical way, it's the center of their lives, because that's the foundation from which they're functioning. Even producing the crops, it is because they're trying to figure out why even produce the crops, why sustain ourselves, why live life. They're also asking these questions and living their lives based on this foundation.
Exactly, right? Because that would be the thing, right? You'd be brought into the world, and then there's beautiful sun, beautiful animals, beautiful weather, beautiful people, beautiful rivers, and that's just given to you as a gift. So then you have to just say, hey, like, you just have to look like all this is given as a gift, right? So then you have to just be like, you look up in the sky and see all the stars. So life is given as a gift. So then you have to just you would have to just be like, wow, like that flower, right? That bee, that bird. This is a gift. Like that is what you would see. So
Yeah, and even like all aspects of the lifestyle was connected to the nature somehow. Even even just simple as waking up and you do like brushing your teeth. That brush comes from the tree. Like it's not something made in a factory. Like you literally just go in your backyard, you see the neem tree, you take a little bark from it, you start chewing it, you start brushing, the teeth with it, and then you even like tear the piece of the bark apart, and then you fold it and then you use it as a tongue scraper. Like it's a natural tongue scraper. So even as little as that is connected to the ambience, the environment that they're living in. It's like it's a self-sustaining thing. They're not paying for the toothbrush. They're not paying for a toothpaste. They have that. It's built in the ecosystem, and the soil that they worship is is gifting them these things by producing the tree, by making the bark, and then you get the fruits of that. So yeah, even little things like that, even things like medicine, how people used to treat themselves. People use things like neem. Other There are also local like herbs that are just found in that locality. They're not You can't find that on Amazon. It's like you have to go there and you find it specifically for that region. And even the smaller communities have their own medicinal system. It's not like there's just one universal medical system and then that applies to everyone. No, it's like based on the region that people are living in, based on the climate people are living in. They have certain crops, certain plants and herbs that grow in that region based on that environment that they're living in, the climate, water, etc., etc. That crop is used, or that plant is used in a certain way for certain ailments, certain diseases, certain treatments. So even detailed stuff like that existed, and even some of it still exists, fortunately. But slowly it's going away if people don't reclaim it and start practicing it. But even that minute level of connection people have to the nature, to everything around them.
yeah. So yeah, that's what you also mentioned is purpose. That is actually it's a brainwashing, right? A distortion, and just a complete it's like a complete fabrication of reality actually is happening. So
Even things like the water that they drink, right? Nowadays, like you see all these different brands of water, bottle waters, and uh, even like filters. There's so many. I'm not against filters, right? Like, of course, they're useful, especially when the water quality is so poor in many parts of the world. But back in the day, like my ancestors, the way they used to drink water, they didn't have a filter. Like, they didn't have bottled water that they can just go to the store and buy, because their water, the way they acquired water, was in itself like self-purifying. They would just get water from a well, and even the way the stones are structured, like when water flows through the stone, it naturally filters the water. And that's the water they drank. And it's not that they died. They lived for 99. My great grandpa lived for 99 years. He drank the well water all of his life, every single day of his life. He didn't have any diseases. He didn't go to the hospital. He lived like that, healthily, drinking that water that was natural, coming from a natural source. So yeah, he didn't rely on all these other things that, and not just kind of related to India. The whole world is forced to adopt this new lifestyle of you have to kind of get the water bottle, the filters to kind of have a clean water. In the name of clean water, all these products are being sold when clean water should be free. Clean water shouldn't be something that you have to take an extra step and go out of your way to acquire. Clean water should be a natural consequence of you living in the environment that you're living. It shouldn't be something that that's a luxury that you have to go
Yeah,
and buy.
exactly. You shouldn't be afraid of the river water.
Yeah, but the unfortunate thing, even there, people are being forced to not drink the river water, because now the way society is being structured is people are dumping waste and all kinds of chemicals and trash in these water bodies. So now they're using that as a justification to say, "Oh, you shouldn't be drinking this water because it's contaminated, it's polluted. You're gonna get diseases." Um, but they're not realizing, okay, what's causing this water to be polluted? Why is this water not pure anymore? Why can people not drink out of it? Instead of that, they're just suggesting different options. They're giving all these other commodities and items that you can buy at store, making you feel like you have freedom to drink the water that you want. In a way, it's just like trapping you in that cycle of constantly having to buy different things, and viewing water as a luxury that you can only have if you spend money on it.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. We never imagined, that you had to buy water. Growing up, we never imagined that would ever happen. But it's like you can't drink the water anymore. You can't drink the water. Like that's, for the last 20 years now, you can't drink the water. It's never, ever crossed your mind in growing up that sometime in your life in the future, you're going to have to buy water. That just never existed as a concept.
And I hope this doesn't happen. But I mean, if we keep going at this rate, we might as well have to buy air, like clean
I have to
air.
buy air. Yeah, for sure.
The way,
Yeah.
the way air is being polluted, the way people are like living inside, they're breathing in the air that's also influenced by the paint in the room, the AC, all the different items that we carry, like furniture, all the polishing on the furniture. There's so many different things. And if we just continue down this line without realizing how are the things that we're situated in, the environment that we're situated in, how that's affecting us in a negative way, then yeah, we're gonna have to buy air one day where we get to a point where we dump so much chemical and toxins and all this toxic lifestyle around us that we literally won't be able to breathe, and we'll have to go to stores and buy oxygen tanks and have to breathe with like a thing put on our head, on our noses. So I mean, it sounds like a radical and a crazy thing to think about, but I mean, it can very well be true. I mean, people are already, wearing masks and stuff like it's a normal daily thing. And I'm not against or pro mask. Like I'm just saying the way the lifestyle has changed to people just not wearing anything to everyone just wearing a mask. That was such a dramatic shift within the last 3 years. Anything can happen if the society doesn't consciously wake up to the things we're doing to ourselves. This is the path that we're heading to.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. So that's what, if we like, so there's many, even the whole colonial history is very well documented, what they used to call white man's burden, a manifest destiny. I'm not sure if you heard those terms before.
Yes.
Right. So this was part of the justification for why the white man had to civilize the savages, why they had to invade the various countries around the world, nations around the world, and bring them white man's knowledge. It's very well documented as it was because the merchants who wanted to make money and get prestige by bringing exotic animals or slaves or goods from around the world needed a justification and funding for doing that, and it had to be somehow justified to the society. So yeah, these backgrounds of white man's burden and manifest destiny meant it's the white man's burden to civilize the world's savages, and so depict them as savages, etc. And manifest destiny. So it's manifest destiny of the civilized white man to civilize the rest of the savages. And anyway, so you see a lot of this, like with the, I believe it was called the GTA, Greater Trade Agreement of the Americas. And but so what was to happen in South America is the governments who are struggling get a huge amount of funding from the corporations to bring businesses there. So those businesses come, and the money that comes in buys up the farmland and builds the industry and brings the farmers off the farmland into the industry. So it destroys the indigenous tradition. So that is one serious thing that's happened in destroying the indigenous populations and traditions, lifestyle, civilizations of South America. So similarly in Africa, extreme other ways of sowing war and discontent and drugs and arms to fund those violent conflicts has happened in Africa. And so anyway, so there's these indigenous populations. So this is what we see. There's a Holocaust, planned, executed Holocaust against indigenous traditions.
Yeah. I think it just skipped my mind what I was gonna say. No, you're absolutely right. Recently I saw, this is what I was thinking of. Recently, I saw a headline in one of the prominent newspapers, and they posted on, like, social media about it. So the headline was like something along the lines of like Hindu, or I think they use the word Indian people, like, doing all these crazy things on Thaipusam. So Thaipusam it was like a festival that recently went, celebrating Lord Subramanya Murugan, right? Lord Shiva's son. So in that festival, in many parts of like rural indigenous parts of, uh, especially in the south of India, they, do a lot of practices and rituals, that people quote unquote call it like it's like savagery, or kind of primitive, or uh, something that's not civilized. So it kind of relates to that idea of the white man's burden, because this headline is just insinuating that all these Hindus are doing these crazy things that don't make any sense. This is like their narrative that they have in their head. And all the people commenting, under that that post from prominent newspaper, they're saying, oh, India moment, or they're saying Hindu moment, and they're saying polytheist moment. So they're using all these anti-Hindu slurs to kind of make the point and kind of say that these people are primitive, this is their moment, this is what they've been always been doing, doesn't make any sense to us. When in reality they don't understand the depth of these practices. um, Practices like even things like fire walking, or people like pierce different things on their body, because in Hinduism, in Sanatana Hindu Dharma, it's viewed as ferociously and intensely raising yourself beyond the body. Um, and a lot of these people don't understand that. They just look at it for the face value, and they're like, whoa, what are these people doing? Doesn't make any sense. They're just causing harm to them. When in reality, they're coming from a very powerful space of ferociously declaring themselves to be beyond the body. I mean, it's a very tough thing to do. Who wants to walk on fire like on a normal day? It's a very powerful thing to do. And instead of looking at that aspect, that all these indigenous rituals and traditions are the way they're being practiced, people are like thinking, oh, this is savagery, this is primitiveness, this doesn't make any sense. Um, so yeah, I mean, I feel like that narrative was kind of really solidified during the British colonization in India, where a lot of people from Europe came over, and the way they kind of perceived the Hindu society was based on their understanding, their limited frameworks that they had in their minds. So they made all these narratives, they wrote books. They're actually in the United States, I think, Library of Congress or something. I forgot what it's called, but all the past newspapers from the United States are stored in that like archived manner. So there's actually a page called Hindu History. It's spelled Hindoo, like Hindu history, and even that spelling has like a significance to it, because the way Hindus were described was, that spelling was used in these old newspapers to describe Hindus. And if you study those things, you'll clearly see where all these prejudices and the narrative about Hindus is coming from. It's coming from that same mindset from a lot of for example, Christian missionaries who went to India to their mission work, right, to convert a lot of these indigenous folks to their religion. The narratives that they created was Hindus are, quote unquote savages. They're heathens. They're devil worshippers. They're doing all these things that make no sense. So it is their job to kind of come and civilize these people that don't know anything about their framework. Um, yeah, so I mean, it's clear. Even if there are actually headlines about the Jagannath Yatra from these old newspapers, where the Jagannath Yatra in Puri, which is a famous chariot festival, if you want to call it that, where people, it's like thousands, hundreds of thousands of people gather on the streets and celebrate Lord Jagannath. And the newspaper headline from way back when, like several decades, a century ago, was the way this Jagannath Yatra was being portrayed in the United States was that in the newspaper, the way it was written was that all these people are coming to this chariot festival of the Hindu god Jagannath, and they are killing each other on the streets, and they're rioting, and in this huge chaos, people are getting killed. Completely ignoring the spiritual aspect of the Jagannath Yatra, the reason why all these Hindus are gathering in Puri to celebrate Lord Jagannath. They're just completely ignoring all that, and they're inserting this new narrative that they want their audience and their kind of civilization to understand these other indigenous folks in the other part of the world. So this is how narratives are created. This is how a lot of prejudices manifest, because it has a historical source of this kind of bigotry against indigenous folks, not just Hindus, even many other indigenous folks around the world, but especially Hindus. There's actually so much evidence that hasn't even been unearthed. There's only one, that page Hindu history, like I mentioned, they're doing, that revival work or archival work, to kind of revive all these newspapers and bring that to the attention of Hindus, saying, hey, look, this is where the bigotry is manifesting from. These are the narratives that influence even the academia, the kind of things that we're taught in schools. Because I've been through the schooling in the United States. I've been through high school. I've taken the world history class. I've learned about Hinduism from my teacher. And I've also taken a course on Hinduism, Asian philosophies at my university. I know the kind of things that they're teaching. And looking at these newspaper clippings, I can clearly see where they're getting these narratives from, even in the academic setting. It's coming from this prejudiced notion that has been ingrained in their heads by intergenerational, passing down of this bigotry in a way, through academia, through the media, through government, through even religious organizations that are, openly bigoted towards Hindus and other indigenous folks.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. Right. So yeah, that's awesome. So there's many things we can expound on. It's going to try and take us back to your experiences. We will we'll come back to all these various topics in the future. Okay, Dinesh, yeah, I mean, let's just there's so much obviously to share, so we'll just continue. But so yeah, that's great. There's so many important aspects there. So it's important, and people people connect in various ways, and they need to make sense in their own way. And yeah, so it's important to show different aspects of things. Good. Let's just go a little bit back to your growing up. What can you share? What is your what's your earliest memory of life, actually, of this life, actually?
Honestly, I'm trying to think. I'm like, I don't remember too much about when I was like 1 or 2. Like, I don't remember any of that, to be honest. Wow, that's I can't really think of what I can remember. It's like, I kind of remember everything, but I can't like put a date to it. It's like I have the experience in my like being, like I feel that I've felt that, I've experienced that, but it's hard for me to kind of say exactly like, oh, this was when I was this many years old. um,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I remember spending time when I was probably like in kindergarten. Yeah, in kindergarten, like KG. Just me having like conversations with my grandpa's brother who was handicapped, who my family took the responsibility of living with. So I would spend most of my time with him, because he would just play with me and tell me stories about different things about Hinduism, all that. uh, and he would also kind of just support me and nurture me in growing up. So I just remember having conversations with him. I think that's probably my earliest memory that I can like concretely remember.
Okay, good. Let's go back to that. Where are you?
I'm like sitting in front of my house.
Mm. Okay,
And
and
yeah,
so
he would just he was like that person, like he's like a nanny, but like not really, he's like a part of the family. But he would just watch over me. He would see, back in India, in the village, a lot of kids when they grow up there, there's various local like games that people play. So one of the things that people played where I was growing up was marbles. So there were specific games that you can play using those marbles. Um, there's also games with like it's called marchak. It's kind of like Ludo, similar but a little bit different. Those kind of games, and you know, whenever we would play these games, uh, like my grandpa, basically, grandpa's brother, who bought us these things. Like he would buy us certain games, to make us happy. Then he would tell us different stories. I just remember sitting in front of the house and at night, and my grandpa, I'm just going to refer to him as my grandpa because that's how I feel connected with him. He he would just tell me stories um about different things. Like I remember him telling me a story about Hanumanji. um yeah, that's that's probably the earliest memory.
mm, him telling you a story about Hanumanji.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
The story
Okay.
actually, I'll tell you, it's a little story. I don't
Mm.
remember the exact details, but in essence, it was, people. So there are so many regional stories based on their own kind of imagination. It's not that these stories are not from Shastras. My grandpa is not well read in Shastras. He's not, he's spiritual, religious, and he followed a certain sampradaya, right? But that is, he wasn't well read in the Shastras. He's, the son of a farmer, and he's handicapped. He hasn't been educated much. He kind of spends his life in the village. He's not going outside the village. He's not having a phone or having all these experiences that people now have connected globally. So there's stories that are passed down in these localities, that people just kind of make. It's not something that's in the Shastras. So based on the lifestyle that they have, so we grew up in an agricultural kind of an ecosystem. So the story that he told me was based on that. So there's like a bullock cart, and like cows are like pushing it, and the wheel gets stuck in the mud because it's raining a lot. And then the person who's riding the cart, he like prays to Lord Hanuman, to he chants the mantra, and Lord Hanuman appears and rescues the person who's driving the bullock cart, and pushes the wheel up from the ditch that it went into. And he rescues the person because he has devotion towards Hanuman. So yeah, I remember that story specifically.
Mm. So, okay, good. Does that what you feel that moment is your earliest memory?
I feel like I haven't thought about that enough. Like I've never thought about going back to way back, like exactly the first moment that I kind of conceptualize things. I don't know. I feel like I remember more experiences than kind of relating them to like a specific date, saying like, okay, this is exactly the first one that happened or anything like that. I just kind of remember everything that was like going on around me. Like, like this is how we live. This is like how I conversed with my grandpa. Like he told me this story. Like I remember that, but then if I have to say exactly this is when it happened, I don't know if I will be able to do that.
Right. Okay, good. So, but you think that that is one of the earliest actual incidents you could pinpoint?
Yeah, I was very young during that time.
Mhm. What age approximately you feel that would have been?
Wow, I'm like really bad at this. uh, I would say I want to say kindergarten, but like again, I don't feel confident. Like I don't feel certain with that answer. I feel like it's kindergarten though. I really feel that. I don't know what age
So,
that is.
right. Was it around four? Probably around four, right? 4 or 5?
Yeah. Oh wait, actually, I remember an earlier memory. Wow. Maybe that's what you're trying to do. Yeah, no, I remember. So even before kindergarten. Okay. Wow. Before kindergarten. So what all the villages have, wow, I can't believe I forgot that. I'm just in a shock right now. So most of the villages, what they have is called Bar Sanskar Kendra, or like it's basically pre-kindergarten, but for the village. So people like send their kids to that, and they learn basic things, like they learn maybe mathematics, like they learn how to count beads, like stuff that's like pre-kindergarten. You're learning like very basic things. You come together with all the kids in the village, and you like sing songs, you do different things, different activities, play, uh, learn about colors and stuff like that. So it's before you actually enter into like actual education. It kind of reminds me of like a gurukul lifestyle, but the thing is, it wasn't like a guru, like it wasn't an authentic gurukul at all. It was very like modernized, um, in a way. But I remember that specifically because I remember going to that, someone picking me up to take me there. So one lady would come to every house, and she would like pick up kids, and she would take them to the town center, and then we would all the kids would gather, and there would be a teacher that would teach. So yeah, I think that's the earliest memory I remember. That was before kindergarten, one
Mm.
year.
Wow. So, okay, so you would walk there to the place every day, or?
Yeah, so sometimes the parents can drop their kids off to the location where this mini school is, and sometimes like even the person will come and pick up the kids. I think it depends on I don't know, maybe
Mm.
different situations.
Mm. So pick up, you mean in vehicles or just walking?
Walking. It's like a
Right.
walking pickup without a vehicle.
Yeah, of
It's like
course.
the lady is like she's like driving the bus, and then all the kids would just like follow her, like but without
But
a bus.
nice. Okay, cool. Okay, let's go back to the earliest memory. That's where um uh, um yeah, this is it's a way to heal people actually. So yeah, what is the earliest memory you can see there?
I remember, yeah, going to that school. I remember eating certain foods. I remember eating fafra, which is a staple, like a very popular Gujarati snack. Um, it's like a
What is it
long
called?
fafda. It's spelled Fafda. So it's like a long, thin, like fried. I think it's made of. I don't want to say. I don't know what exactly it's made of. I think chickpea flour, maybe. Don't quote me on it though, but it has like cumin in it, different spices, turmeric, and they fry it, and it's like a really famous breakfast snack in Gujarat, even today. So I remember eating that because during lunch, they would always, give snacks. So I remember as a kid, I always looked forward to the snacks. Like I'd be like, oh, what are they gonna provide for snacks today? And yeah, I remember that, and I remember specifically counting on where it's like a rectangle and they have like metal bars in it, but they have beads in it. So what you do is you hold it horizontal, you take one bead and you slide it across, you say one. And you slide another one, you say two. Slide another one, you say three. So like that, I remember learning counting like that. And then also in that same school, preschool, I guess, um, I remember writing the letters or the numbers and even letters, different alphabets. So the teacher would, write like one in Gujarati, right? And then we would just sketch out one on it. So we would just use our pencil and just trace the one like 100 times until it becomes muscle memory, where you just don't forget how to do one. So we just keep doing it over and over and over again until that letter is so thick with the pencil marks that you just don't forget. You just don't forget it anymore. So we used to do that for the numbers in Gujarati and in English, and we used to do it with the letters in Gujarati and in English, both. All the alphabets for both the languages.
Great. So how did that feel doing that?
Felt good. I really enjoyed it, honestly. I enjoyed that school because it didn't feel like, it was more of a fun thing. Like you go there, like you're anticipating the snack. You're like, what is it gonna be today? Is it gonna be fafra? Like or it's gonna be the little, I think they call them fryums or something. We call it bungra. You know what I'm talking about? The coloring, the fried snacks. It's like anywho,
Bunga.
but those, yeah, it's called fryums or something. But those, uh, like little kids really look forward to that. Even today, I mean, it's like a very kid-friendly snack. So I just remember anticipating for that. And it was a fun time overall. Maybe tracing the numbers wasn't the most fun, but I mean, I don't remember it as being a very negative or heavy feeling associated with that. Like maybe in the moment I might not have, maybe I might have felt, okay, like how many more times do I have to do it? But it wasn't something that was giving me like pain or discomfort. It was a very enjoyable thing at the time.
Great. Okay, good. So I'll probably just ask you once more, but okay, good. So you have some memories of the food and the anticipation and the writing. Do you remember the writing, the experience of it? What it's like? See, when we go into the experience, we get completion with it. And when you get completion with your earliest memories, it completes everything that happened after that. So when we relive our earliest memories with our sort of awareness now, we have opportunity to unlock a lot of things that may have been that may have been blocked as incompletion, from that point.
Actually, I want to correct myself. Like now that I think more about it, I'm remembering more details. It's like, so we actually did not use a pencil. We used the pencil to trace the letters in kindergarten when I actually went to kindergarten. But this pre-kindergarten period, in this preschool in the village, right? We were all the little kids were required to have a slate with a chalk. So it's like a tiny rectangular slate. It's dark in color, it's black in color, and we would all be given a chalk at the school, and that's what we would trace on. So the teacher would write any like a number in Gujarati, like one would be like this, and then we would just keep tracing it with the chalk until it becomes thick. So yeah, I totally skipped my mind that we actually use a slate. But everyone used a slate and a chalk to practice. I remember that. That was the only required material for the school. We didn't have to bring any textbooks or anything.
So do you remember the experiences of doing that? Can you relive that? Do you remember what it's like? What is the feeling of the chalk? What is the size of the slate? What is the feeling of tracing it, or the sounds, or if the other people are doing it? Do you remember actually, or the smell of the chalk? Do you remember actually doing that thing?
Yeah, I definitely remember the slate and the chalk. I think for me, it was an enjoyable process because I've always been artistic as well. So I like to draw things, and this was a way, this was kind of something more creative than just like, I don't know, because I had an experience writing something before that period, uh, in this life at least. And then, I was given this slate and a chalkboard, and I was just told to trace this number over and over again. And it was an enjoyable process. Like I thought I was learning something. I thought I was drawing something. I just felt I felt like I was doing something creative in a way. And I think that has manifested in my life as well, with that creativity where I kind of feel drawn to it, like even making like origami things. Like I was really big into like origami when I was in middle school. uh, when I came to the United States, I just watched some like video on YouTube, because that's when I discovered internet. I was like, what is internet? I didn't know that was a thing. So then, so I used to be really creative and make all these origami things, and I feel like I can trace it back now to that period when I was allowed to trace these numbers and draw on the slate. And of course, when we wouldn't be at the school, we would just take the slate home and we would just draw and do different things on the slate when the teacher is not there, right? So we would just get creative and just play around with the slate and the chalk. So yeah, I think I attribute that to that period of time where I was given something to play with, to draw and do all those things.
Great. So good. Has this been made it so you can remember anything before that?
No.
Or anything seemingly of the
See,
same time?
honestly, I don't remember, because I said that and I remember like 5 different things. So I don't know. Maybe I have to like think harder, like think more about it. Maybe I just if I just keep making the connections, maybe I would have to do the process on my own too, and kind of keep thinking about different things, and then it will just open up another thing that I might remember before that one.
Okay, super. Yeah, so that is, I just wanted to share about that because in Sanatana Hindu Dharma, so there's in the Vedas Agamas, there's a concept of Purnatva, which is like the space of completion and wholeness. And so that's the space of Paramashiva, of the source consciousness. And so that's the source of all of us. So yeah, so that's the obviously the concept in Sanatana Hindu Dharma is not that we're born sinners, but we're manifestations of divine. So we are the manifestation of the Purnatva. And so basically, this is why the the Varnashrama Dharma and the ancient Enlightenment Hindu civilization, the kids go to the Gurukul, right, the home of the Guru. They grow up with the enlightened being. So that space of Purnatva that we're all born with, instead of it getting covered up with incompletions and girls can't do this, boys can't do that, or like rote learning or rote writing, why am I doing this, or any traumatic experiences that happen and that block our energies and expression. it's like they grow up with the guru, so the guru makes sure that their natural spontaneous energy continues to flow and doesn't get blocked by any of these things or reprimands or whatever. So anyway, so that is what as so this is these techniques are revealed in Shiva Sutras. There's like 112 sutras of Shiva Sutras, but so these techniques of so Shiva reveals that reliving the incidents of the past with your awareness now, not being swayed by those emotions and blockages, etc. So, for example, right, if someone goes through a divorce, like for example, or a traumatic experience, or in childhood or whatever, they develop a blockage, an understanding about life that ends up, limiting their expression. So that's just what, like, a 2-year-old child will be just, completely open and, sort of defenseless in a sense. So, but anyway, the issue moving forward in life is that we then learn ways that we need to defend ourselves or not do this or not do that. Or often it happens unconsciously through traumatic experiences where we don't stop expressing things. So that is essentially, what blocks enlightenment. So, and blocks, us fulfilling the purpose of our life, and, blocks our spontaneity. So then, entire civilizations can get into situations where, right, instead of, for example, right, where we're trading off a way of sustaining ourselves for money or for, selling the land for this, or like, so it's, a lack of awareness, a lack of expression of our, of our sort of spontaneous natural enlightenment, and a lack of, it's like Patanjali says in the Yoga Sutras, over time, the yoga is lost, right? And even, of course, Krishna revealing in Bhagavad Gita, Shambhavami Yogi Yogi, again and again, as the human consciousness, the collective negativity raises so much, the consciousness falls so low, I come again and again to dispel that negativity and ignite and raise the level of consciousness of the humanity. So it's a known process, right? It's known in the tradition of Sanatana Hindu Dharma. We know that the condition of the humanity is that we are incarnated beings of pure consciousness, but getting stuck in the Maya, getting stuck in the human patterns, right? Or the 7 emotions of the 7 chakras, for example. So Hindus, we know that. We know that, the enlightened beings are going to be born and they're going to get diluted, like the enlightened consciousness is going to be born and it's going to get diluted by the human factors, like, bringing their prarabdha karma, but also getting diluted by the agamya karmas, gathering the influences from others. So anyway, so this is these are the beautiful revelations of Sanatana Hindu Dharma, is that God is not only the creator, sustainer, and destroyer, but he also is, or she, or the consciousness is also the one that creates the delusion or the illusion that we live in. So if you are an extension of life has created you, and the source has created you, then in the widest perspective of all things, seeing all things as part of oneness. If anyone visualizes any kind of duality between creator and creation, so look at a bigger perspective. Right now we're seeing, okay, the bigger thing of all of that envelops the creator and the creation, right, as space of oneness. So if that space of oneness, as the space of existence has manifested us, we're also part of that existence. So we have a connection to it. So we have a connection to the pure source. So that pure source is expressing through us. It's part of us. It's expressing into us and through us. So that is our potential for our life. And so anyway, yeah, so this is the understanding, that Hindus have, that we're a manifestation of the divine. and the understanding that the human body, is a sheath, is a cloth, is like outfit that you wear temporarily. And so these are the the gifts of this spiritual tradition, the spiritual truths, that you are a spiritual being, and in that you're unlimited. But we get deluded by the illusion that's created also by Shiva, or the creator, the source consciousness. So that's an important part, right? It's not just a creator, sustainer, and destroyer, but also God, so-called God. That term is not necessarily translatable, but the Panchakritya, the 5 actions of Shiva, he's also creating the illusion. So the illusion that I am not a spiritual being, right? The illusion that I'm not enlightened. And then he's also performing the action of pulling you out of that, so that we see that, okay, the human bodies are having the consciousness enter into them, conscious beings enter, and they are getting deluded in the delusion. But then they also can be pulled out of that. So those are extremely important parts that are not covered by God as only a creator, sustainer, and destroyer. Like that, okay, fine. Things get created, they get sustained, they get destroyed. But the human experience, what we need to know about is, why am I deluded and how do I come out of it? That is actually like, fine, things get created and sustained for some time and destroyed. But what the humans need to know is, why am I deluded and how do I come out? That is right. We shouldn't miss that part. So anyway, so that's what. So thank you for bringing us back to your experience, because this is the thing, is that we're all a manifestation of the existence, and so we have a possibility to connect to and reconnect to that source more strongly. And when we do that, our life becomes more powerful. So this is why, as Hindus, we're gifted with these sciences of how to enlighten any conscious being, regardless of what tradition or religion or God they follow. So that's why we don't have to discriminate, because we're not there to change you or convert you or destroy you. We have the sciences of lifting you no matter what path you're on. So when we go back to these early experiences, because it's a deeper experience, a root experience for you, that means closer to the source. So that means closer to everyone's source. So many people, you'll ask, what's your earliest memory? They'll say, oh, I remember when I was 15 years old, this happened, right? And they cannot remember before that. Or like 6 or 7 years old, they cannot remember before that. So because we're all manifestation of the existence, when someone shares from a space that is closer to the source, that space, our being knows that is a deeper space. So when the sharing comes from that, it's a deep, profound understanding and sharing. And we all get the connective benefit of hearing and experiencing that space. So anyway, so this is the science of the sciences of Sanatana Hindu Dharma, described in Shiva Sutras and other places, that when we go back to our earliest memories, our earliest experiences, and relive them, like the reason we remember that is because it has some significance to us. There's some significance, right? Why only that experience? Why not something else? Yeah. And so anyway, so when we relive that listening space gets deeper, and other people connect, and they end up listening to themselves in a way that they never would otherwise. So that's what people really need to understand is, and experience that benefit of, and that is why when we engage with enlightened masters who are situated in the very source core itself, their speaking and expression comes from that. So that is what it shakes you. It breaks down all sorts of barriers inside of you that you don't even know about, because they're speaking from your source speaking directly to you. So it's sort of like, for example, if your earliest memory is the age of like 3 or 4. So it's sort of like the source consciousness is expressing through you. Like if we're looking out through our eyes, right? The source consciousness, life is expressing from inside of me and out. And so then I try to go in as far as I can get to the age of 3 and 4 only. So it's sort of like I'm standing at the age of 3 and 4 and looking out, but I can't see behind me age 2 and 1. Okay? So it's sort of like there's a wall there. So, but because the enlightened master is situated there, he speaks from that space and he can see it, right? So he can break down that wall and pull you back. So anyway, so these are this is what people don't know about what an enlightened guru can do for you.
That's a great point. Yeah. Because a lot, like even I'm having a hard time, recollecting my memories before that time period. And even just having this conversation, right? The proof that this process works was witnessed live right here, right now. Because before coming into this conversation, I hadn't really thought about all these things. The earliest memory that I first thought of was, me just having a conversation with my grandpa. And then, because you asked me to relive the experiences and think harder and, kind of go back, which is the process, like you mentioned, described in the Shiva Sutras. It actually worked. I was able to go back more and actually dig deeper and try to figure out, and I even connected one of the patterns, right? It's not a negative or a positive pattern. It's just like an observation that because I was allowed to, do whatever I wanted to on that rectangular slate, it kind of resulted in me being a little more on the creative side where, I felt more inclined to draw or make things out of paper, different things like that. So I think it definitely works. The process works. We just saw it. It's my experience now that it works, right? And like you said, even the years before what I can remember, like a person who's situated in that space of complete completion in that oneness where they can see the past, present, future as it is when they're in that state space being. They can really help us go beyond the roadblocks that we have, even the years before the last incident that we can recount in our lives. So yeah.
Right. So okay, now so then the question, see, these are the spiritual sciences. It's like, this is really what Sanatana, I mean, this is really the purpose of Sanatana Hindu Dharma, this is the purpose of Hinduism, like to give the beings the solutions. Like so much is talked about, so many things, right? Festivals, food, culture, language. Yes, okay, super, but and still what is missed because people are not connecting with living gurus, still it still sits as like a book or a religion or a culture or a practice. Or something nice to be talked about or something nice to be remembered, or a tradition, it still sits as something other than me. It sits as something like something to talk about, or a book or a tradition or a history or a story. It always sits, unless without the supreme being having the, manifesting the ultimate experience, without that, it always remains as like just an external story, and
that reminds me of when I hear a lot of my Hindu peers talk about, like, especially people that I've noticed in India a lot too. Everyone's like, yeah, back in the day when the rishis were there, we had all these great sciences, and we had the Vimana Shastra, and we were the first ones to do surgeries X, Y, and Z, and they're describing all these things with great detail and great enthusiasm, which is fine, which is great, because it is recorded in our shastras, all these different things. But at the same time, I feel like we as Hindus need to introspect and say, hey, why am I just talking about it when I can experience these things? And a lot of people aren't at that point where they say that, can I experience these things, right? Because that is the main thing. A lot of people don't even know that they can experience these things. Most people just think these are the things of the past. They're just in the books, and it was in the Satya Yuga or Dwapara Yuga, but people think that, oh, it can't be a reality right here, right now, because a lot of people have this mindset that, oh, we're in the Kali Yuga, so we can't, we can't do anything. We're just in a state of negativity. This is just what it is, and that's it. I feel like that's a very reductive way to think about it, especially if you understand the history of Sanatana Hindu Dharma. These sciences are still alive, and the gurus, the guru paramparas, are what's keeping these traditions alive and these sciences alive. Um, because if you notice, there are many organizations, there are tons and tons of Hindu organizations. Not everyone can claim or say, okay, yeah, we're going to revive all these indigenous practices or indigenous sciences as they were. Now, I'm not against any organization. They all have their own different roles that they're fulfilling within the larger Hindu ecosystem. But Hindus need to realize that there is something more. You can actually experience the things that are mentioned in the shastras that everyone likes to talk about. You can take that step. You can put these things into implementation into the current society as we know it, whether it be the economic structure, whether it be the social structure, whether it's the agricultural or the governmental, political, every single aspect of our life. We can map these ancient principles, and actually live this lifestyle, and also inspire the world to adopt this lifestyle for the future of planet Earth, because there's so many different issues going on in the world and people don't have solutions. Everyone is talking about problems. Everyone's saying we have this problem, that problem. And there's so many reports and essays and publications posted about the problem, saying, these are the evidences for problems X, Y, and Z, global warming, deforestation, agricultural genocide. That's what I call, what's happening to my community back home. All these things are happening, but people actually don't have solutions. They might have certain ideas of, maybe if we do this, it might work, and do that. But we actually have evidence of a structure that's based in the Shastras that actually works. There are so many sciences and methodologies and practices and rituals and traditions that can restore the vitality of this earth, the Mother Earth, Bhudevi, that we live on. That can actually bring equilibrium and equanimity to the planet that we're living in, so that we're not constantly destroying everything around us. We can come out of that delusion, pull ourselves out of that delusion, thinking we're just stuck here and we're in the negative, and we can only just talk about these things from the past. But actually coming into the positive, empowering space where we realize that not only is this just of the past, but we can actually make it the present. And I think Hindu gurus are to owe for this, because they are the ones that have kept the tradition alive. And even within the fold of Hindu gurus, there are very few individuals, very few gurus who can actually transmit this knowledge firsthand and give you, or anyone, any individual, that experience of Advaita, experience of oneness, experience of all these different things that we like to talk about.
Right, exactly. So one question is, because that's what, right? Because, so then Sanatana Hindu Dharma tells like Tatvamasi Aham Brahmasmi, and so it's like saying you are that. So part of the thing is how I perceive myself. So that is like what is, when I look inside and I look at me, how do I perceive me? And it's essentially sort of, right, the issue is like, I'm seeing myself as small. I'm seeing myself as less. I'm seeing myself as, I need to defend myself against others. I need to protect myself against something because I'm less than everything. So I need to preserve myself. So I need to protect it against possible outer violence. So I perceive other things or outside as me as threatening. And so this is how we manifest violence, basically by seeing ourselves as small. So then I would just ask you, because, so there is a process also. Okay, when you are, so let's say when you are, when you're doing the rote drawing on the slate, can you see it yourself? Look inside at that moment when you're doing however much you can see that you're doing that thing repeatedly. You can close your eyes if you want. So that is what you're doing. At that moment, when you're doing that activity, if you can look at yourself and say, what are the words that you are speaking to yourself about yourself? Like when you're doing that activity, when you're doing it, and you look in and what are the words that you're saying about yourself at that time?
Um, I can't recall any like specific words because I don't even know if I kind of was fluent in speaking the language back then. But I just remember drawing the one. I don't know what I just pictured the slate and it just has the Gujarati letter or the number one on the slate, and I'm just like keep going over. I just keep going over it, and yeah, but I'm just in a very like I don't have any words that I'm like uttering to myself, but I'm just in a very like happy place. I'm just in a very relaxed, uh, blissful, if you want to call it that, like relaxed space where I'm just kind of doing it, for no like expectation. Like I'm not even expecting to like learn the numbers or anything. Now that I look back at it, yes, I'm like, okay, I was learning it back then. But when I was actually performing the action, um, I was just doing it because, it was just like in the moment. Like I wasn't even having an expectation of learning all the numbers. I was just doing it because I was told to do, by my instructor. So I just keep doing it.
Hmm. Great. So if you can go to that moment, can you experience yourself doing it? Like at that time, can you go to that moment and see and be there doing it?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, good. So now you're doing the thing, right? You're like, what is it? You have chalk in your hand and you're writing on the slate?
Yeah. I'm like drawing on the one. So she wrote a one in Gujarati on the slate, and then I'm like tracing it. Some of the tracings have like gone out of the out of the actual imprint, the print that she gave me on the slate. So I'm noticing that it's a little wobbly. The lines have gone out of the line a little bit, but I still keep doing it over and over on top of it.
Okay, good. So what kind of chalk do you have?
A white chalk.
Okay. How big is it?
Small, and it's a thin piece of chalk.
Okay. Is it hard to hold? Like it's so small that it's hard to even grasp it?
I would say it's like a comfortable size. It's like not too big, not too small. But if I just hold it, I can just keep on going easily, like comfortably.
Okay. So can you smell the chalk also? Can you smell something?
I don't smell it. I see like little pieces of chalk that might be coming out of the because I keep doing it over and over. It's creating like pieces of little chalk dust around the slate.
Okay. Is it on your fingers also?
Mm-hmm.
So you can feel the piece of chalk in your fingers?
I feel like I don't know if I feel it. Like I just know that it's there because it's sketching something like it's like actually putting the mark on the slate.
Okay, but you can see it.
Yeah.
You can see the slate.
Yes.
Okay. So you're in a classroom?
Yes.
Okay.
On the floor.
Can you
On the floor.
can you hear anything?
The noise of the chalk on the slate.
Okay, anything else?
I don't know why, but I'm just like noticing the outside ambience, like right outside the classroom. There's like a huge neem tree. And that's where we used to like that's where we get the neem leaves from to eat in the morning. Um, yeah, but it's just like a peaceful environment. It's like trees around, and the door is open to the classroom. And it's not like a classroom in a traditional sense. It's like um, it's just a hall. It's just an empty room. Like it doesn't have any desks or tables or anything. It's just we just sit on the floor. Um, and yeah, and the windows and doors, everything is open, so you can sense the breeze from outside. Um, it's not an enclosed space. It's it has air coming in and out.
Great. And what is good? What is the light? What is the lighting like?
It's bright, sunny.
Okay, super. Okay, are you able to see how you're feeling about yourself?
Well, I'm like imagining myself to be like content, but I don't know if that's like me saying that or is it like an actual thing what I was feeling back
Mhm. Okay, good. So just go back to that moment. Can you can you get inside your body? Can you be inside your body? Like, can you go there and be there?
then. Okay.
Are you there?
Mm-hmm.
Are you able to, can you see your body? Can you see how you're sitting or what you're wearing?
Not really. I'm not picturing myself. I mean, I'm picturing myself because I've seen pictures of myself, but I didn't like really look in the mirror back then. So I don't know. Like, I'm not really visualizing myself in that way.
Okay. Can you see the slate?
Yes.
Okay. So you can be there and you can see the slate.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Are you seeing it through your eyes at that time?
Yes.
Okay. So you can see your hand also?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. So you're there. Are you able to see? Can you look and see? Can you check what is the feeling that you're having about yourself? What are the words, if you can kind of turn it in and look a little bit? So you're writing on the slate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're like, what is the number that you're writing?
1.
Okay, so you're doing it repeatedly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. So as you're doing that, you can hear some other sounds, right?
Relatively quiet, but maybe the breeze.
Okay, you can feel the breeze. How do you feel the breeze?
Not like in a like a windy sense, but because it's like sunny. So I just I just know that it's like fresh air because everything is open, like the window, the door is open, and the light is coming, like the natural light is coming from outside.
Okay. How are you experiencing that? Is it you're experiencing it in your nostrils? How do you know there's fresh air? Where are you experiencing the fresh air? Or is it the light?
Yeah, it's more so just like being there and that that environment, like that weather being around me, like that openness with like fresh air, coming in and out of the room. It's not claustrophobic. Um, and the fresh light that's coming, the natural light coming from outside.
Can you look and see if you had to look and see if you had to tell if you were able to look inside from being there, not just looking out to the slate and whatever, if you could look back inside and check out and say, how are you feeling about yourself, or what are you saying about yourself, or what is your description of you, like if you're doing the writing. Okay, now if you looked inside, what is Dinesh saying about Dinesh doing this thing? I am what?
Uh, like no, I'm content. Like I'm not really thinking about anything. I'm just like doing the task. So going over the one.
Okay, good. So if in that moment, in that place, if you had to make a judgment about yourself, what is the judgment? You are what? You're saying content. Okay, what else?
Indecisive.
Okay, and what else?
Yeah, I just said content, but like now I feel like maybe some worry, maybe like a little bit, or like something else that I might be thinking of.
Okay, good. What else?
Me not think about like other things.
The what, sorry?
Like I don't know. I'm just like contradicting myself now.
Okay, good. What else could you say is the inner conversation? What else you're saying about yourself? What else might be the judgments, the words?
I don't know. I can't really recall what exactly I would be thinking then. But I don't know. This is like keeps coming in my head right now, so I'm just gonna say it. Like like some worry about something else that I like keep thinking about, but I don't know what.
Okay, good. Is there any more words there?
No, not really.
Or anything else you can describe about that feeling, emotion, thoughts, worry? How else you can describe it?
Maybe thinking about something else, but like forcing myself to do the task at hand. like I might be worried about something external, but I'm just doing the one and trying to like engross in it because I've been told to, like, by my instructor.
So then what are you saying about you because you're thinking, worried about one thing, but doing this thing because you're told, then you're saying, hey, Dinesh, you are.
Mm, maybe I'm conflicted.
Okay, good. What else?
I don't know, maybe me going like outside of the lines is also because of this, because I'm not fully present there. Because
Okay, which means, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, because I maybe like my mind is, going like some other worries or something.
Right. So you're right. So you're going out of the lines, which means Dinesh, you are what?
Not focused.
Okay, what else?
Mm, like mindlessly doing it, I guess.
Okay, and
Like agitated.
yeah, good. Keep going.
Restless. Because I like keep doing it. And sometimes it's sloppy too. So restless is it?
Good. So keep telling the word. So all these things means Dinesh, you are what?
And looking back at it now, I just feel like I am the consciousness that's looking at myself going through all these things, which are not really me in the sense of who I really am.
Mm-hmm. Right. So look at the judgment that will be there, what are you saying about you? Like if, hey, Dinesh, you're doing this, but you're thinking about this, you're worried about that, but you're doing this, you're going outside the lines. Dinesh, there'll be an internal conversation. There'll be words about it. Hey, Dinesh, you're this, or you're that, what is that?
Uneasy, um, feeling alone or feeling lost, feeling like I don't have control.
Okay, good. Then what is you judging as you, as someone who's lost, who doesn't have control, means what? You are what?
Not focused. I don't.
Yeah. And what else? You are what? Someone who's not focused, you are, there's more words in there.
Uh, like an overthinker, like thinks too much. Um,
Yeah, good. That's what you'll be judging yourself because so there's the words saying, hey, you're this, you're that, what are those words?
I don't know. I can't really. Like,
Okay, good. Any other words that are there? What you're looking at yourself?
uneasy. Yeah, uneasy, frustrated, frustration.
Good. So then means Dinesh, you are what? Can you see there's a value judgment you make because you're frustrated, because you're this, because you're that. Dinesh, you are what?
So are you like looking for another adjective, like to
Just
describe?
you see how you can connect. How are you? If you can see inside, there will be a conflict between I'm doing this, but I'm feeling this. I'm giving this instruction, so I'm doing, but this. So then there'll be a talk back saying, hey, like you're saying, like you're unfocused, you're unsure, you're unsettled, you're having doubts, you're having worries. So there's the same kind of things. If you can see, there will be a judgment. There will be a voice making a judgment about your actual being. Will be judging you, labeling you, saying you're this, you're that, you're that, you're this.
I'm not.
Sorry?
I'm not capable.
Good. Yeah. What else? Keep going.
Like I don't have the power to resolve whatever it is that's bothering me or worrying me.
Yeah. Good. What else?
I feel like I don't have control over it.
Mhm.
Whatever it is, I don't have. Like I'm not in charge of it or of how I perceive it.
Good. What else?
I feel like I'm just like closing out because I, kind of believe myself to be not capable. So I just like shrink myself, um, thinking there is no, other possibility.
Good. Yeah.
So maybe I like shrink away from like other people, other kids around me. kind of a thing.
Good. Good. So in that moment, because of that feeling, you will be speaking something about you because you're doing that. You know, because you're shrinking, there'll be a judgment, there'll be some sort of a words. Hey, you are, because, you know, you are what? What is it? What else is there?
Like I'm not worthy or I'm not important. Um, I'm not loved.
Which means you are what?
I feel like I've kind of used a lot of words to kind of say what it is. I can't think of any more words.
That's okay. Don't think. Okay, you're doing good. That's great. Just look one more time, see if there's anything else there. Whatever, anything that's there, just say what are the words that are there. There'll be words that, you know, you're speaking to yourself.
I just feel like I can't do it, and then I'm like rubbing the chalk like even harder on the slate, being frustrated. Like I'm just pushing the chalk even harder when I'm making the ones.
Right, exactly. So you're saying something about, like you're saying, I can't do it. Right. So you're saying you are what? You are what?
I feel like I just keep coming back to that point about not having control. Like I feel like I can't control what's happening, and I'm just like taking out my frustration on the chalk, and in that process I'm not even doing the one properly, like drawing the one properly.
Right. Right. Exactly. So that's what. So those strong words are faced inside, and it's saying, you know, you're writing, writing, writing. Then inside it's saying, hey, Dinesh, you are what? You are what? You are what? What is it saying?
I just feel like I'm not capable.
Okay. You are, yeah. Or it could be I something, I something, I this, I that.
Like I can't control, or I can't I can't solve whatever the worry is. Like I can't I feel helpless. Like I can't do anything about it.
Mhm. Right. So then it will be like, okay, you are what? You are what? You're worthless, you're powerless, you're stupid, you're what is it? You are what? Like, yeah, not what you're thinking now, but that person at that time, what are you talking about yourself as you're like, can't do this, I'm doing it, I can't do this. Then you're saying, hey, you are what? Because you can't do it, then it means what? You are what? What are you? You are what? How are you? What are you saying?
Defeated.
Okay, and
Like that's what like I'm not having any like really strong like condemnation of myself in a way. Because I don't even know if I would know how to do that at that age. I'm
mhm,
just I'm just like feeling these things. I'm not
yeah.
really kind of any like verbal conversation or condemnation of myself in that sense.
Mhm. Okay, good. So you saw you are defeated. Anything else you can see like that?
Defeated, helpless, hopeless, unable to change circumstances, like incapable. I think those are the predominant things.
Great. Okay, you're defeated and hopeless. Okay, good. Anything else?
I think that's all.
Okay. Okay, so great. That's excellent. So what you can do, Dinesh, is anytime you want, you can reconnect with the space and that moment and just sit and like you yourself had seen various other incidents are coming up that you're remembering, right?
Yeah.
Mhm. And various other emotions and like I'm not able to focus, I'm worried, I'm thinking about something else, the teacher's asking me to do this, I can't do it, I'm going outside the lines. So those aspects are there. There's also, like you said, various memories. Okay, this was an earlier memory. This was a different memory. Your grandfather telling you the story of Hanuman and that. So each one of those any experiences. So it's connecting with your source. So you can use this, connect with the source, the earliest memories, and the parts where, right, initially you felt like, I feel content. Right? I feel content. But then we're seeing, okay, actually I'm feeling defeated and hopeless.
Yeah.
So, and then there was other words, right? The not able to focus, worried, I can't, those things. So anyway, so these are the web of human emotions that block us, and they'll be related to various other experiences. So we can go back to those times. So what you can do anytime you want, because it's a deep meditative space, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a powerful space. And so you can bring yourself back to the earliest memory of powerlessness, because our earliest memories, end up creating incompletions that the rest of our life is built on. So when we rewrite those incompletions, clear them, everything from our whole past and future gets cleared out. This is how you can rewrite your past and to recreate your future. Anyway, so it's also a deep meditative space. It's very cleansing, very healing. So what you can do is anytime you want, you can connect with any of those memories, experiences in that same space, relive them like that. Let any of the words come out, any of the emotions come out, relieve that. The blockage is there, right? So that frustration, whatever, just as much as you possibly can, relive it until any possible, agitation, energy that is there is released.
Mm.
So
yeah, that was
yeah.
really great. It's like, well, I've done the completion process, what we did before, but first of all, I didn't identify this early, like the earliest memory this far back. I was kind of I was kind of doing the completion process when I was like in middle school, being new to America and not knowing English, and having insecurities about myself because not knowing English. Um, so I was like doing completion about those things, but I think this kind of goes even more, back in my life, and it kind of shows how a lot of these feelings and a lot of these patterns that I have um, developed even much earlier than that, even when I was a little kid, knowingly or unknowingly. Like when you're little, like you don't even realize how you were feeling. Like first I started off saying, I felt content. Um, and that also has to do with, like societal conditioning, that we think that kids are supposed to be content, like they don't know anything. So I'm just like kind of assuming that about myself. But I think like going through the process, visualizing myself physically there, as if I am living that experience again, kind of brings out a lot of things that you wouldn't have thought of. Like, and the craziest thing is like I can relate a lot of that feeling towards a lot of things that have happened in my life, years later. Um, and I can like see, like connect where that pattern developed from and how it has gotten it's emboldened because I never completed with those patterns. It's like it got even stronger and stronger, um, to the point where it became like a big thing, right? Where I finally started seeing, I'm like, whoa, like why am I feeling all these things? Yeah. So thank you so much for doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that is the power and grace of initiation from Guru. So we are blessed with the listening space and many initiations from the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Nithyananda Paramashivam, who also, has given these techniques, shared them from Shiva Sutras, where Shiva describes this process to bring that current consciousness as you are, bring it back to the past and relive those emotions unmoved by it until they clear. So it's a spiritual process. So These are the aspects that humanity is missing. Humanity has many ideas and concepts, but hey, you're a spiritual being, you have spiritual capability beyond time and space. What to do with that? So this is part of that science. So these are the sacred sciences like the Raja Vidya, the Raja Guhya, the royal knowledge and royal sacred secrets of Sanatana Hindu Dharma. So this is actually what humanity needs. Hey, you're spiritual beings, you have spiritual power. So that's what is so then Dinesh, so we have these things like, telling yourself, okay, I feel defeated and hopeless, because of this, writing this thing and that. So there's things to know, right? Like there's no logic to it. It's not a reasoned thing. It's not logic. That is the experience because it's the experience. It happened because it's happened. It's not a logic explanation. It arises because it arises. So then what we do is we look at, okay, these are the earliest things I can see, how I'm telling myself I'm limited. So what is the solution? So you can find out for yourself, what is the solution? Like, what is the cognition if you're telling yourself, one of your earliest root patterns of limitation is saying I'm defeated and hopeless. So what is a cognition, right? It's a cognition. It's just how you're viewing. It's a perspective. It's just a cognition. So it became an incompletion that was there and it repeated itself. So that's how it happens, the root pattern from the early age, that cognition, because of this experience, because it happened in that experience, cognition of myself moving forward is defeated and hopeless. Even though I'm feeling content, something seemingly innocent, but actually I'm having this pushing harder, right? You said, then I'm pushing harder, then I'm pushing harder, then I can't do this. I'm distracted, I'm worried, so then this cognition that even in the most innocuous situation in life, feeling this powerlessness, right? So when I'm innocently living in my life, just innocently living, but still like accosted by the life and cannot continue. I cannot be. I am defeated. I'm hopeless, right? Just from experience of writing the chalk. So then that carries forward. Well, if that is the case, then so many other places in my life that will happen. So forever I'll be defeated and hopeless. So these are the cognitions that get put inside the incompletions that block our enlightenment expression. So it gets repeated. So then what is a powerful cognition, Dinesh? So if these are some of the fundamental cognitions from that experiences, defeated and hopeless. Now, what is the powerful cognition? Because these are unconscious things. It's not like you said, right? It's not that there were so many even struggle to find any thoughts or to find any words. And you're like, I don't even know if I knew words at that time. So then maybe, right? So much like, so it's an unconscious thing. It's not a conscious, unconscious happening that frustration, etc., that traumatic event makes that inscription inside of us. It's an unconscious happening. It happened because it happened. There's no logic to that. So the powerless cognition, I'm defeated and hopeless. Okay, fine. So that is a pattern that's getting repeated. But it can be rewritten in an instant by me living a powerful cognition. So this is a spiritual powerfulness, right? Tattvamasi, you are already that. So it's just a decision, just a recognition. So recognizing. So if the powerless cognitions are inside, that have been sustained that incompletion, that I'm defeated and hopeless. So what is a powerful cognition that you can choose consciously? Because this is an unconscious happening. You have the power to live consciously. This is Sanatana Hindu Dharma. We live conscious lives. So you make conscious decisions. And so what is a powerful cognition you can choose that will make sure that these powerless cognitions and completions cannot repeat and will not repeat? What is a powerful cognition that you can implement in your life and say, now I live according to this to make sure those things don't have power, because I know that has been an incompletion in the past, an unconscious incompletion that's reproduced itself. So my solution is, here's my powerful cognition. regardless of what's happening, I know this is the solution. So I don't have to pay attention to these silly doubts, worries, things, etc., that came from the past in an unconscious way that were no logic to them anyway. In a completely innocuous situation of writing this thing when even the sun and the light was nice. So what is a powerful cognition that gives me the life solution from that time and before that you can implement? Say that if I live this powerful cognition, this is the ultimate solution, complete solution for any of the powerlessness I've experienced in the past.
I think consciously deciding to do something. By the way, I already like feel lighter. Like just going through that, like I feel very light right now, and I don't know. I just feel different than how we started the conversation. I feel more settled too. But on the powerful cognition that I think consciously deciding to do something and actually making it happen. Like, see, a lot of times, like I feel like I might do something and I might not make it happen. So it just emboldens that pattern, saying that okay, I'm not capable, or I'm not uh, that I can't, control the situation in some way, because I maybe I started something and I keep failing. But I think consciously deciding to do something with the context that I'm doing it because I'm going to succeed no matter what. And I think that also comes with like a perspective. Like if let's say if I do fail at something that I want to do, not expecting not expecting a certain version of success. Uh, like maybe seeing success in whatever it comes, seeing success even if there's failure, there's always something, there's still something that to be hopeful for, or something that's still you still succeed at, even if it's as little as you knowing that you did something wrong. So you're successful at knowing what you did wrong, and why you failed, instead of kind of just limiting mm, the possibility of success the next time.
Right. Okay, great. So it could be, right. So it can be something like even, right, just replacing, because yeah, see, personally, I had this the sort of root pattern incompletion of like impossible. Sort of like you're saying you have this experience of I'm defeated or hopeless, right?
Mm.
So that's what I also going through the process recognize. Yeah, have this similar cognition, like everything is impossible. Like even the word you use, defeated, right? That means that's it. It's over. It's done. Already defeated, right? And so anyway, so that's what I recognize. Had this. There's a thing of impossible. We actually the parents were divorced when I was about 4 years old, and so we ended up moving away from the father. And I remember the experience. This was the experience that came back through actually Swamiji's blessings, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Nithyananda Paramashivam. He was giving an online program. I was participating, and he was guiding us. And so he gave this experience breakthrough. And what it came out to was I understood. I started crying and everything. And what I understood was I'm like 4.5 years old. I'm in the car with my 2 sisters and my mother. And we're driving away from the house where my father now lives. We're moving to another city. And, like traumatic experience, right? And so we're driving away. And as we drive away from the street, and I'm looking out the window, I can see the house is going out of sight. And as the house goes out of sight, I feel like I'm alive. How do I feel? I feel like I'm alive in the house. I'm alive in the house, but my body's in the car. And I'm getting pulled apart.
Mm.
Yeah. And so yeah, so then we moved to a new city, and it was just like, yeah, you know, it was literally like you had one life on one planet, and then you move to a new planet, and you're just kind of pretending like that life doesn't exist anymore, and you're just living the new life.
Mm.
Because our grandparents were in that city, our aunt and uncle, several aunts and uncles, of course, our father, and our friends and family and everything, and our neighbors, the kids and everything. So it was literally like, yeah. So anyway, so then tracing through and looking, the memory that came up, going into the emotion, right, of that event, going into the emotion, where does that emotion come from? And so there was a memory that, like, why is it such an strong emotion? There was a memory that when we were still living in that house, my mother, I was young, like 3 or something, my mother opened the door, I went in, and I had kept my shoes sort of in the entryway. And my father had saw that or something later, and said something about shoes being kept in the entry. And then my mother said something like, "Oh, it's okay. He just did it unconsciously, no big deal." And they started having an argument. And I felt like, oh, I caused the argument. And so then later when we left, I thought, oh, my argument caused this breakup, and now we're going somewhere.
Mm.
So that was a cognition I had, that me leaving my shoes, an innocuous thing, an innocent thing, me leaving the shoes in the thing, caused the whole breakup of my entire family.
Mm.
That was the cognition I had inside. So then I thought, hey, you should not do anything. Even subtle, unconscious, innocuous things, don't, because anything you do, so even innocently, could destroy the entire everything. For not only you, your grandmother and your father's mother and your mother's mother, because now the whole thing is broken. You don't see them anymore. You don't live with them anymore. They can't talk openly about your father and mother. Your father and mother can't talk. You can't talk about your father to your mother. You can't talk about your mother to your father. So there was this thing inside, don't do anything. Because, this was one thing. So it's just like, even this, most sort of, innocent kind of thing, if you do this, then anything you could do could end up destroying, this whole thing, even if it's, your sister's lives and this whole thing. Anything that was in that previous life that was there, any kind of unconscious, even totally, innocent thing that you might do can just absolutely destroy the lives of everyone that you know, right? So this was the cognition. So it was this thing like, so then the resistance to starting things. Hey, don't take responsibility to start anything, because you at any time, any of the things that you could do could result in complete destruction of everything. So it was like, okay, don't take responsibility for things. Don't be a leader for things. Don't take responsibility for others, because at any time, anything you do innocently could totally destroy everything that you know. And had already done that, right? I already destroyed the lives of my sisters and my mother. And so you could destroy everyone's life without even knowing how or what you did, but it's possible, it happened. And so that whole pattern was there, right? Don't start anything. And so don't even try, because it's impossible, because at any time it could be destroyed. So anyway, yeah, so there's this whole cognition of impossibility. So once I understand that, I know, hey, inside of you, from this root is a cognition of everything's impossible. So then I just know, hey, you know what? Inside of you is a thing that says impossible, 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 impossible. You can't get up in the morning. You can't do yoga. You can't do this. You can't start that. You can't, achieve this. You can't lead that. You can't start that. Everything is totally impossible. So now that I know that, I can just know, hey, there's a stupid tantrum throwing child inside of me saying everything's impossible. Everything's impossible. Everything's impossible. So now that I know that, I can just totally discard it and say, hey, I know that's going to be there and it's going to rear its head from time to time. That's okay. I know I don't need to pay any attention to anything related at all to anything that has to do with anything with impossibility or doubt, worry, whatever, because I know it's totally illogical, Yeah. So anyway, so that's the experience, how it has helped me to know that there's this root pattern of impossibility. Because then I have doubt, worry, fear. Hey, it's totally illogical. It doesn't make any sense at all. And it's not true, but it's proven again and again to completely derail you unnecessarily. So that is given the strength, like, no, that whole thing I already know is complete trash. I don't need to pay a second instant, nothing. I know it's going to be there like a ball and chain going to be dragging on me, but I know it doesn't actually have any power on me. So that's the thing. When you ignore a few times, that unwanted guest, they stop coming back actually. so, yes. So I just wanted to share that. That is how it's been a benefit.
No, for sure, that's powerful. I can relate a lot to that, what you shared.
So, okay, so I want to thank you for being so open and honest and sharing. And it's actually just, your own willingness and listening space that even makes it possible for this experience to happen and for people to witness how it can happen. So I thank you very much for that. So again, that is obviously, it's a deep listening space closer to the source that is going very back early. So most people are not able to listen that far in their life, that's for sure, especially not for that long and not that many things, not that many times. And that is, part of the blessing of you having grown up in an Indian village. So thank you very much for that. And yeah, so again, this is part of the process. The blessing of incarnation, enlightened master, that they can take that space behind us where the blockages are, they can just drill it out. They can drill the whole thing out and clear the whole thing out without us having any idea what it is or how to do it. They can just remove that whole thing for us. And so anyway, so this is how, Hinduism has always told that the blessings of the guru does things that we can never do and that we will never understand. So anyway, so this is some of the foundations of the sciences, actual spiritual science, to science. And the very rare gurus know that science and can make it happen for us. So, so yes, I think probably we will complete today, because this is powerful space of completion that's been created, and I don't really want to confuse it with any other discussion, really. Giving the space of completion to ourselves is, one of the best things we can do. So, discussion, knowledge, etc., is one thing, but the space of powerfulness and completion is really, manifesting our enlightenment. So that's why I would avoid asking. I would avoid really going into any other concept. So yeah, so that's it. Dinesh, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to share about anything or the process or experience or anything else, I guess.
Sure. No, first of all, I want to thank you for leading me through the process. Because, I've known the process, but I feel like I didn't go as deep, as we went today into the process. And I don't know, I like physically feel like more settled. You can probably even notice my tone. It's kind of like calm down a little bit. And it's not just rambling a lot of things that I just that I've experienced, but it's, I don't know, I feel more settled, I feel more calm inside. And definitely I think the process definitely works. Like I can definitely feel a difference within myself as well. And yeah, to anyone watching, you can try this at home too. And I'll definitely be, doing it again, because I think in the process itself it says you should relive uh, at least 21 times, but you should keep reliving uh, the same incident, the earliest incident that you can encounter again and again and again, until you relieve yourself from those pains and the patterns that we have. So I'm definitely going to be, reliving this experience, that same incident that now I have, that I can go back to. So I'll definitely be doing that. So thank you so much. And yeah, we can talk about the other things in another discussion. I feel like it's a good
Yeah.
place to, and because there's too much to share.
Yeah. It's yeah, that's what the space of completion is really more important than any kind of knowledge. And yeah, that's the thing, right? Is because there will be a web of unconscious experiences that happen in our life. So when we go through and relive them like this, then it becomes like, oh, I know what that is. Oh, I know what that is. I know what that is. I know what that was. And then it just becomes a thing like, okay, what is the challenge I'm facing? Okay, inside, what am I telling myself is the difficulty? Okay, where does that come from? Oh yeah, this, and this. Okay, done. So, that is it sort of just builds the confidence, like, of being able to discard patterns and doubts, worries more quickly. So, and yeah, those are the manifestation sciences, right? Your consciousness, consciousness is a matter, like, and changes the space around you. And people experience that with mantra specifically, right? If you chant the mantra, you'll be able to feel, you can feel the space, that is like when the homa is performed and the chanting happens, the chanting actually creates the deity in the space through the mantra. The mantra actually manifests as mantra, as the deity. So that vibration literally manifests the deity as mantra. So that is the chanting in the home is actually creating the deity, manifesting the deity in the space that's created by mantra. So you can literally, deity is blessed that way also.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, that's what I feel more powerful. I feel more, it's like, see, you feel more stable and rooted and confident. So it's like there's less sort of fluttering, right? And it's like, it's a very powerful. So that's what we can live that way. We can live that way all the time. So I mean, that is personally, right? That is a blessing of having having a living incarnation who lives it and can give it. And that is personally, it's like, a lot of the things with Hinduism too is like, I didn't start learning much about Hinduism until later in life, and it's sort of there's been more the benefit of Sanatana Hindu Dharma that has been the sort of attraction, more so than any knowledge or lifestyle practice or anything, right? The experience of that is just like, that is the proof, and so and it's possible, right? Without knowing, you can live it. You don't have to know in order to live. I'm actually a proof of that. There's so much I don't know about Hinduism and the practices and everything, but just having the experience is like, oh, that experience is valuable, that experience is important. You can live the experience even if you aren't able to describe and explain everything about it. You can live. And so that has been like the important proof with Hinduism. Like, you can live what Hinduism is talking about because of the Hindu sciences. So that was something I never found in other traditions, that depth of experience. And so that's what we look at, like through Bhagavad Gita and Krishna and telling, hey, you can live like this, you can do it like this, as like that, than having a living guru who's, in the same tradition and referencing the same shastras, and then saying like, this is the process to go through to make it for you, and then take it through the process and it happens. It's like, wow, that whole experience of Krishna, you can live it for yourself. So yeah.
I think I noticed that about a lot of new practitioners of Hinduism is, they tend to be more practicing oriented. Like they will actually practice what's in the shastras, what their gurus are teaching, and I think that's a lesson that we as like born Hindus can also take, and not just me. I mean, I'm definitely taking that for myself, but I think even anyone else watching or any born Hindu, I think that's a great message, that we don't need to just be talking Hindus, we need to be practicing Hindus. Everyone can talk about a lot of things, even university professors can talk about Hinduism, but the main thing is like practicing Hinduism. I think that's what results in you being able to talk about it. But I think the foundation has to be the practice itself. And a lot of times born Hindus tend to fall in the trap of just talking about other things but not practicing them. So that's something great that we have to learn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And it becomes, yeah, exactly, right. And it's like, in a lot of ways, then the experience of it is more important even than, I mean, it's more profound than talking about it.
Yeah.
So like, that's what, it's not that we shouldn't talk about it and share, but if without the experience of it, it misses the point, actually.
Yeah, definitely agree.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much. It's been excellent for sure. And so we'll complete with Purna Mantra and hopefully join again soon.
For sure. Yep. Sounds good.
Great. So everyone out there, anytime you want, you can do this simple meditation. Close your eyes and bring your awareness to your breathing. Breathe as slowly and deeply as you can. And connect with a deep sense of gratitude for master, teacher, guru, friend, however you want, God. You can visualize or their laughing face. And we inhale deeply and chant loudly. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamidachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishyate. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sarvam Bhagavat Shri Nithyananda Paramashiva Parukarpanamastu. Om Nithyanandam. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dinesh. We'll see everyone again soon.